Yeah, I have three, four things to talk about.
Okay,
That sounds good.
sounds good.
Yeah, very busy. So you guys can see, can watch the TV and everything in the cruise, right?
No,
Okay, that's good.
no, but I've been surfing YouTube in the evenings.
Okay, all right. So I think we're on. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cheyenne's Forum. Today is July 8th, and here is our dear friend Tom from the cruise. Hey, Tom, how are you?
I'm fine.
So
I'm
nice to see
fine.
you
Yeah, we're
again.
on the last leg. We're in Iceland.
I
We arrive in Reykjavik, the capital, tomorrow.
so far so good, huh?
So far,
Great, great. I'm so glad that you have some time to relax during this difficult time.
yeah. There's never a good time to be out of town or to travel, and I've known that my whole career. As soon as, in fact, friends would tell me, "Stay home," because every time you leave town, something happens, something bad happens. So, so I'm kind of used to that, trying to keep up with what's going on.
Sure. Which is true that during you are out of town, something happened, something big happened. So, before we start our topic today, I'd like to introduce Tom. He works in FBA for almost 30 years, and he worked as assistant director of FBA for 5 years. Thank you so much for your service, and thank you so much for spending time with us every week to analyze
Thank you. Did you say FBI or what were you
FBI.
saying? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the place. All right. So we have some topics today about Biden. He actually announced officially that he will not drop from the election, meaning he will stay in race for the 2024 presidential election even after the debate. So that's the first thing. Second thing is White House and Democrats are strongly against the SAFE Act, which is asking for confirm of the citizenship before you register vote. They're against that. And the other big topic today is about France and British England. What's going on there? It is just a big surprise when we see the far left wing over the Le Pen, which she won before. So, yeah, what's going on? People are just lost. Is the election be rigged, or this is the systematically mistake, or France changed totally? That's the question. And also in the States, we now know that the illegal immigrant, can get the work permit and the Social Security benefit within 2 to 3 months.
All right.
It's a big surprise that we know that they can get work permission. That's okay. Everybody knows that. But they can claim the Social Security benefit. They're
Yeah.
not, yeah, not immigrant. They are just illegal here. How could they
Yeah.
do that? And how could the government allow this happen? So these are the topics of today.
Okay.
Sounds very um tough topic, huh? Some topic is like people don't want to mention that. But how about Biden? Do you expect he said he will stay in the race, he will never give up, and he can beat Trump?
Well, he can't beat Trump, but I won't be surprised if he does stay in the race. And if the Democrats find that the pain to the party of removing him is going to be worse than just putting up with it and throwing away this election till 4 years from now, try better with someone else. But I think that from my perspective, the Democrats did this to themselves. Where were they 4 years ago, pandemic or no pandemic? Trump was holding rallies with 50,000 people attending, and Biden was hiding in his basement, or he'd come out once in a while and talk at a parking lot where about 10 people were. And so the Democrats did this to themselves before the 2020 election. They already did this. And they put this guy, he was, now they're trying to make it like they're shocked. Oh my gosh, we didn't know he was
Sick.
debilitated
Right.
and in such cognitive bad state and all that. Well, everybody else knew it. They're saying because anytime someone pointed that out 4 years ago, the Democratic Party immediately jumped on them as being racist and you're just a Trump person and that's why you're doing it. And people were saying, even medical doctors were looking at him and saying, this is not right.
Mm-hmm.
Something is not right with his brain.
Mm-hmm.
And and he's much worse. If you see speeches that he gave 4 years ago, and he didn't do many,
Mm-hmm.
but he was already making the mistakes he makes and all of that. It just wasn't quite as obvious. And he had the entire media, the entire Democratic Party elite backing him up. So nobody in an official capacity was saying we should be doing better than putting this guy on the ticket as our nominee. And
Mm-hmm.
now they helped with all the lies that they told, all the cover up that they did, all of the, nursing that they got from the media, all of that should have told them that he is not fit to be president. He wasn't fit 4 years ago. He wasn't fit 14 years ago because at that time he was just stupid. But
Mm-hmm.
even now, discounting the fact that he's dumb and has been dumb,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that on top of that, the extra burden of his dementia has kicked in and it's only getting worse day by day, week by week. So the Democrats, they did this to themselves. And now after the debate, they set all the rules for the Trump debate. The Democratic Party set the rules. And Trump just said, okay.
Yeah.
And I think that Trump and Trump's closest advisors probably said, no, accept every limitation, every condition that they put on, because Biden will not be able to match it. You can.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get in a fight. Don't be belligerent. Don't be obnoxious. Just go along and let Biden dig his own grave.
Mm-hmm.
And and I think that was the strategy. I have friends of mine that have said they're mad at Trump because he should have immediately jumped on Biden and retaliated on this topic and that topic. I said, no, he was extra smart. He did this on purpose.
Right.
The old expression, give him enough rope and let him hang himself. And
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what Biden did. Trump didn't bully him. Trump didn't beat up on him,
Right.
verbally or otherwise. Biden did it to himself because he couldn't help it. He's not in good enough shape for a
Mm-hmm.
debate or for any kind of a mental contest,
Mm-hmm.
especially with somebody as superior as Trump.
Mm-hmm. So for a situation like this, Biden is not capable to doing the job, and I think everybody who watched the debate will have the conclusion if they have their mind, right? So that means Biden and his party are ready to steal the election again, maybe in a bigger score. They did that in
Agreed.
2020, and for this
Yeah,
year, definitely they will do it again, do it bigger, right?
right, right. Yeah, the Democrats seem to have made really poor choices in terms of the timing of the things that they do. We've
Mhm.
talked about this for
Right.
how many weeks now, that they waited till the last minute to bring the charges against Trump in
Mhm.
all these jurisdictions with all of the constitutional issues that would come up and that need to be decided by the lower courts, appellate, and Supreme Courts.
Mhm.
And so, no, they're going to wait till the last minute because we're going to get Trump
Right.
right at the time of the campaign and he won't be able to overcome what we do to him.
Mhm.
Well, he's doing fine so far. And yeah, they've got the phony convictions in Manhattan
Mhm.
on the 34 charges.
Mhm.
That even now, Democrats are starting to say, you know what? Those charges are going to get thrown out, especially in light of the new Supreme Court decision
Right.
of, presidential immunity in official decisions, official acts. And the interesting thing, now there's so many topics to spin into, which is not a smart way for me to answer, but the idea that Supreme Court made that decision is really, it's not so much going to benefit Trump in the long run as Biden, Obama, Clinton, the other presidents. that
Right.
have served and made all kinds of decisions that they could be charged with. And
Mm-hmm.
you could have, based on what's happened in the last 6 months, you could have district attorneys, prosecutors in the country, across the country, bring
Mm-hmm.
charges.
Right.
Obama killed an American citizen without justification. It was justified, but it wasn't due process. It wasn't in a court. It wasn't decided uh, when he killed that guy. Some of the other decisions that they've made have
Mm-hmm.
resulted in people losing thousands of dollars, a lot of equity in different businesses that they've owned. And so Biden is liable for that. Obama's very liable for that at the minimum, those two guys.
Right.
And, so that's a Supreme Court decision. When scholars analyze that and look back on it in the years ahead, they're going to say, nobody benefited more than Biden
Mm-hmm.
with that
Exactly.
decision. He's made all of these decisions that have hurt any number of people in the country. Start on day one, shutting down the Keystone Pipeline. How
Mm-hmm.
many people lost thousands of dollars that were building restaurants, hotels along the way for workers? All of the infrastructure that was being put in, he killed that.
Mm-hmm.
People lost thousands of dollars in
Right.
that, much
Right.
less what's lost when the pipeline wasn't completed. So just all of that was day one. Day one of Biden's administration, he made decisions that hurt people financially.
Right.
So now they're going to, in the long run, they should be grateful. I think Biden doesn't understand what's going on, so he's not going to be grateful. But
Right.
I think the other legal people associated with the Biden campaign are going to realize maybe, now that might just be, might be giving them too much credit because they are pretty dumb.
Mm-hmm.
But if they had any ounce of intelligence, they
Mm-hmm.
would realize nobody will benefit more from that Supreme Court decision than Joe Biden.
So in that case, do you think their design is pretty smart? Because no matter how the Supreme Court decide, they will be the winner. If the Supreme Court go this way right now, and Biden will be the big winner of the decision because it's protect him from his mistake.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they have another decision which is not in favor of Trump, and they got Trump. So in either way, they're the winner. Pretty smart, right?
Well, yeah, they didn't do anything to win. It's Trump's attorneys raising the issue, taking it to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court looking at that and saying,
Right.
no president
Mm-hmm.
now or in the future, or even recent presidents, should be subjected to the fact that 2,500 prosecutive
Mm-hmm.
entities across the country could bring charges against any of them anytime they want and
Mm-hmm.
bury a president in litigation
Mm-hmm.
forever if they wanted to. And they're trying to do it to Trump, except
Mm-hmm.
they timed it to try to interfere with the election.
Right,
So
right,
as these decisions are coming up and being made by the Supreme Court, yeah,
right,
it's benefiting Trump right now,
right.
but in the long run, it benefits every president.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I remember Judge Thomas saying about it. And he said it's not about the immunity of the president. It's about how this case bring to the Supreme Court. It's a big question. That's the
Yeah.
first question, the last question we need to ask. But anyway, this is our second question for today. It's related to the first one, which is Biden think he will win the 2024 election. So they have to have some extra help. So is that one of the reasons the White House and the Democrats are strongly against the SAFE Act, which is asking for the proof of the citizenship before you do the vote or you do the voters registration? I
They're against any, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, go ahead.
they're against any act, any rule that tries to make elections fair, requiring voters to show ID and prove they're American citizens. They
Mhm.
don't want that. They want all of these things to benefit them, and now they've gotten spoiled in the last few years because all these decisions were made that benefited them. So
Mhm.
Biden has to be looking, if he's even thinking, I don't know, But he has to, if he is thinking, he's got to look at this and say, we'll just do the same thing in 24 that we did in 2020
Mm-hmm.
and almost did in 2016. But that's how he's going to look at this, is that if we cheated and won before, we can do it again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And making it so that you don't have to show an ID or you don't have to prove citizenship or any of these things that are restrictions, Democrats always vote against that. Now, I was listening to a podcast this morning, Senator Bill Hagerty out of Tennessee, introducing a bill, putting a while back now, and every single Democrat voted against it completely. Of fairness in the election or proving citizenship, proving identity, they don't want it. It's like, wait a minute, you're going to make it too hard for us to cheat if you do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually read the statement from White House about the situation, and then one of the sentences said, "We already have the law that we need a citizen to be the voter, or the voter to be a citizen. So if we introduce this SAFE Act, it will prevent people from get involved to the vote and to go ahead to cast their vote." This is the reason that they gave out, that we already have the law. We don't need a new law to emphasize that. So what's your response of that?
Well, most of the laws pertaining to elections are actually made by the states as specified by the Constitution. The states shall set up the rules and set all of that. So
Right.
now what they're trying to do is that the Constitution sets up minimum guides. A president has to be, a citizen, all of those things.
Mhm.
But as far as the rules of who gets to vote, any way the Democrats can spin that or cheat a little bit or whatever, that's what they're going to do. And they know they have to. And especially now, they know they have to. So I think that, from Biden's perspective, he's looking at it that, first of all, how many million people voted in the Democratic primaries for him to be the nominee for president? How
Mm,
many? How much money did he raise? And that money can only be spent in the campaign now, hundreds of millions of dollars by him or Kamala. If he steps down, then it's still the ticket,
right.
Biden, Kamala. Even if he steps down and she becomes the presidential nominee,
Mhm.
she can use the money.
Mhm.
But if they dump Biden or he backs out and and they try to go to Gavin Newsom or Hillary Clinton or anybody else, they don't get that money. So
Right.
now, a matter of a few weeks before the election, they've got to get the money. They've got to figure out where that's going to come from.
Mhm. Right.
So that's a
That
big barrier. That's a big thing. The Democrats, again, they all this time, Biden isn't a whole lot more demented today than he was a year ago.
mhm.
At the beginning he was already tripping. He was already slurring his words. He was always already forgetting where he was at. And
Mhm.
and already the rumors were out there. Who's really running the country? Is
Right.
it Jill Biden? Is it Obama? Is it Blinken? Who's actually in charge of the United States White House, of the White House staff?
Mhm.
Biden. A lot of people were speculating, mostly conservatives, that he's not in charge. Who
Right.
really is? That's
Mhm.
the big mystery. Now,
Mhm.
all of a sudden, because he has one bad, again, he's putting it that, oh, I just had one bad night. Well, technically, that's true because it was the one night bad enough for the whole upper echelon of the Democratic Party to go, oh, there's something wrong with this guy. How come we didn't know that? And the
Mhm.
media, look
Mhm.
at CNN, look at MSNBC, look at these mainstream media
Right.
saying Biden should be replaced, Biden should drop out, Biden can't beat Trump. Where have they been for all these years protecting Biden? The
Right.
fact that Biden is so well entrenched, they did that.
Mhm.
This is their accomplishment to
Right.
get Biden in a situation of being the nominee of, or about to be the official nominee of the Democratic Party and the fundraiser that's responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars in the
Mhm.
DNC coffers.
Mhm.
What are they going to do? And then nobody else can spend it except either Joe Biden or
Right.
Kamala
Mhm.
Harris.
Mhm.
So they have literally screwed themselves in
Mhm.
every major decision the party has made. all along in the last 3 or 4 years.
Right. So it seems like this year for the 2024 election, they will do it again, what they did in 2020, and they will do even bigger. And they don't care. They want to win. They want to stay in the White House. That's all they care about. And then let's move to France and England. About France, we saw a huge change of the outcome of the election. We saw Le Pen win the first round, and then all of a sudden, the far left win big over Le Pen's they called right party, huh? Uh, National Rally Party, right? And I have some numbers here. The Social Party, which is NPF, they got 7 million votes and they got 180 seats in the Congress. And the Macron's party got 6.6 million votes and have 159 seats. And for Le Pen, RN, they got 10.1 million, the most million votes, but they only got 142 seats in the Congress. So what's going on there in France? So are these election direct or what's going on there?
I don't know. I think that you're right. It could be, well, part of that, the parliamentary system is confusing in the first place because you can win a round but not win the whole thing. And then you have Macron declaring, okay, we're going to, have new elections for the delegates and different parts of the government and all of that, thinking that in the long run, he'll beat her again like he did the last election. So one of the interesting things is following media in Europe, and whether it's in the UK or whether it's France or Germany or the other thing, anytime a candidate runs against the established whoever it is in power, they're not just a little right wing. They're not conservative. They're extreme. They're extremists. So, right. So she is portrayed as just almost a lunatic. She's so extreme. And yet the public in Europe have realized their leaders have really, really done them damage.
Right.
And how broke the EU is. Here's the EU. Practically every major country in the EU, starting with Germany, which was the strongest, disbanded their military or reduced it down to being just a local, militia or something. And now they threaten, we're going to go into Ukraine, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. With whose army? Oh, yeah, the U.S. Well, the U.S. doesn't have an army anymore either, that as sizable as it used to be. So nobody in the West, whether it's NATO countries, European countries, or the U.S. and Canada, are in a position of strength like they were even 20 years ago. It's just not the same. Now, part of that, you can look at the arguments of why these countries, including our own, have gone woke. They think they don't need a military. They don't think they need all of this. And now all of a sudden, when they think Putin has run wild, oh, where's our military? We need to build a military. We need to hurry up and hire soldiers and train them. How long does that take? It's not something that's going to be done by the end of summer, like they think is going to be done, or like we think. And so, that's the ridiculous part of NATO and the EU. That's why a lot of the countries want out. UK pulled out now a couple of years ago. I'm sure they're very happy they did. But the biggest favor that NATO got was when Trump went to NATO during his presidency, and he made the statement: if you don't pay your dues, each country is supposed to pay a percentage of their gross domestic product. If you don't pay your share, we're not going to protect you. And these countries are like, oh, no. I can remember former U.S. State Department guys, like Nick Burns, one of them, that made comments when Trump said that he has committed, malpractice by saying that. Diplomatic malpractice. He can't say that. The United States should just keep paying forever. We don't care if they pay or not. Well, there's
Mm-hmm.
29 countries sucking up from the United States. They
Right.
need to pay. And when
Mm-hmm.
Trump embarrassed them and said, we won't protect you if you don't kick in your share,
Mm-hmm.
because then that rule kicks in that attack on one is attack on all of
Right.
them. And Trump scared the hell out of them. So later, the head of NATO, shortly after that, says, thank God for Trump. We have all these billions coming into our treasury that weren't coming in if it wasn't that Trump basically threatened them. You don't pay, you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And none of them wanted to be on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's, now they're looking back and going, all of the threats that they're making on behalf of the Ukraine against Russia, they wouldn't even be able to say those things out loud if it wasn't for Trump forcing them to pay at least a greater percentage of their dues when he
Mm-hmm.
was president.
Right. And keep in mind, these 29 countries are the richest country in the world.
Most
That's
of them,
right. Most of
except
them.
for a few, but most of them, yeah. And
Right.
collectively, their GDP is about as much as our GDP.
Right.
So they're able to pay. They just didn't want to. They didn't want to pay. They didn't want to have a military that takes effort to staff it,
Mhm.
train it, equip it, all
Right.
of that. No, we've got the United States here for the last 80 years. We'll let them do it.
Right.
So so I think that it was a valuable lesson to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, who takes advantage of that? Biden,
Mm-hmm.
because now he can speak for NATO, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to go after Putin, and we're going to have regime change in Russia. All of those threats that Putin made, that were made against Putin, are just impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Biden.
Yeah, so I saw a map about the voting in France, and it's very interesting thing is only Paris are voting for Macron for the Socialism Party. The rest of the France are all vote for Le Pen, and yet she lost. So people just saying that the France will change to Muslim states pretty soon in the near future. People are very disappointed about that, and then we see the same pattern or similar pattern here in the states. Is about the tons of illegal immigrant getting to this country and become the citizen because they have all the benefit as a citizen can have. So,
Well, even without becoming citizens, before that happens, let's say
mhm,
they don't become citizens. You have the recent decision that the U.S. Census will count the entire population, including illegal migrants.
right.
So, so the states like California, let's say, if
Mhm,
they have so many extra millions that get counted, even though they can't vote, they're not citizens, they don't need them, because what they're going to do is they're going to count the number and make enough increase in congressional districts to
right,
match the whole population, legal and illegal.
right.
And so then what'll happen is the people that'll vote will be, legal vote. Let's just say they're legal voters for now, but
Mhm,
they have more districts to choose from to elect more Democrats,
right.
to represent California.
Mhm,
And in a way, it doesn't matter if the migrants ever get to vote, because in the meantime, regular voters get to vote, and there's more districts for them to vote in to
mhm,
vote for Democrats. And
right.
then if that results in the Democratic Party taking over the Senate, taking over the House as a result of
Mhm,
all of these extra districts. Well, the House for sure, the Senate, still could only be 2 senators, but they'll pass laws, and they've been talking about this for how many years now. They're
mhm,
going to make 2 new states, District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. That
mhm,
means 4 senators who will be Democrat.
right.
So you don't need migrants to vote for them. Those are already 80, 90% Democrat
Mhm,
voting. So that's 4 new senators. When we're talking about the Senate, that maybe the Democrats are up one or the Republicans are up one.
mhm,
If the Democrats go up by 4, Republicans are out. They're not going to be able to match that. And in
mhm,
the House of Representatives, you have a similar issue. that many more members in the House. So really, the Democrats have that great strategy to stack Congress, to have more Democrats in Congress. Then the second thing they keep talking about is stacking the Supreme Court, especially after the recent decision that they think is a totally pro-Trump,
Right.
On the immunity and all of that. And so now they're talking about, well, let's add 4, 5, 6 Supreme Court justices. Now, they're not talking about it right this minute because they don't want that if a Republican becomes president. But if Biden or somebody like Biden, meaning a Democrat, becomes president, you're going to see that whole thing come up again, that they want to stack the Supreme Court. Now, the 9 judges that sit on the Supreme Court, that number does not go back to the beginning of the country. And there were times when there was less, there were times when there were more. The number 9 has only been there, I think, the past 70 or 80 years. So it's not specified in the Constitution that so many judges will be on the Supreme Court. Just like it's not specified in the Constitution, if you convict somebody of a crime, it does have to be a unanimous jury, but it doesn't have to be 12. So that's the other number that can be played. And in fact, when I ran the organized crime program of the FBI, we had a situation where John Gotti's brothers, and they were completely always corrupting every jury they could when they were being charged. Gotti's brothers were charged with drug trafficking and a number of things. And they compromised several judges. Now, what they were doing is they were picking 12 jurors to sit on the court and 4 alternates. And then the Gambino family, Gotti's family, went to work. Who are these people? Where do they live? Where do they work? Let's go after them. Let's threaten them. And in one of the cases, one of the jurors approached them, said, "Hey, we hear we can make some money. Give us money and we'll vote for your guy. Not to be convicted." And what happened is they went during the course of that trial. They went through every juror and every alternate juror, and it got to the point where when the case went to the jury, they didn't even have 12 people. I think it was 10 or 11, and they voted unanimously to convict Gotti. That case went to the U.S. Supreme Court. Supreme Court ruled that the decision has to be unanimous. The Constitution doesn't say it has to be 12. So some states have 9, jurors in a trial. It has to be all 9. It has to be all 12 if you have a 12-member jury. So those are the kinds of decisions that have come up in the past and been litigated in the past. And you would expect organized crime to be in the middle of some of the key decisions that were made about, because of the jury tampering. Now, what organized crime did to tamper with the juries is what the Democratic Party does to tamper with the elections. So that's what comes up now, is that they are deliberately trying to tamper with the system so that they win and always win.
So thank you for sharing the story that you've been experienced on the crime organization department. So I'm just thinking that American people really need to wake up, and you really need to understand the situation right now. It's not the difference for the argument between the two parties. It's the argument and the fight or the battle between American people with the again organization like Democrats. I think
the problem with that and trying to hold the people accountable is, for the most part, the people don't have an easy way to learn what's going on, because if they watch mainstream media, even if they have cable and they watch MSNBC and CNN and the other channels, they're being fed lies nonstop by the media. And so the media is really an extension of the Democratic Party. And that's what hurts. Now, up until the debate, that's what I find so interesting. The debate happens. What you saw in the debate was nothing new from Biden, nothing unusual, nothing, tremendous on Biden's part. That's same old Joe. That's the way he's been. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's gotten increasingly worse, and his mistakes are a little more often than they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And his walk is a little slower and more deliberate, and all of that. All of that's true. He's in worse shape today than he was 4 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
but he was in bad shape then, and he still got voted in. So now, with the help of the media, again, the media, he was the media's darling because he was not Trump. And that's what the difference is in this situation is anything they can do to get Trump, they don't care who the Democrats run.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Joe Biden
That,
is a good example of that. They didn't care. That's how they got him.
mm-hmm.
But for the average citizen, and especially if you look at, you know, not every American has the internet. Not every American is going to be surfing YouTube channels and other channels to try to find it, especially when, you know, YouTube channels are censored.
Right.
The other, you know, whether it's Rumble or some of the other channels,
Right.
they have guidelines that if they pass it, they get shut down.
Right.
So, so everybody I know that has a YouTube channel at one time or another
Right.
has been shut down or shadow banned. And I had that with, you know, my other podcast that I'd been doing for over a year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, similar situation where if you subscribe, you know, when you're watching the video and it tells you how many people are watching, how
Mm-hmm.
many people have subscribed,
Mm-hmm.
and you see the numbers are outrageously small, you
Mm-hmm.
know that they're lying. YouTube is lying
Mm-hmm.
when they say you've only got 9 viewers or
Right.
you've only got,
No.
you know, 300 viewers or something like that, 300 subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
It's absurd.
Right.
And, you know, that's what's been going on
Mm-hmm.
is that they're trying to kill channels if they don't like them, if they're conservative, keep
Mm-hmm.
you from saying conservative thoughts, keep you from growing your channel. Let's say if people want to support you. So I've experienced it. You've experienced it. Other
I,
friends of mine have experienced it. So
I,
you don't have a wide open media on the, you know, cable network or the main network news medias. Newspapers are all but the most liberal are pretty much dead.
right.
Probably, I think the only conservative one I know anymore is New York Post with Miranda Devine and
Mm-hmm.
some of the reporters there that are still outstanding. But a lot of the other ones. So all of a sudden now, you know, you have the media, the New York Times, other Washington Post, all of the liberal media and channels turning against Biden. They want to
Mm-hmm.
dump Biden. And
Right.
that was their first reaction. He did so bad. We were shocked. We had no idea he was so bad. We had no idea he was so mentally challenged.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody else knew it that watched, you know, any amount of YouTube, any amount of news coverage. In
Right.
fact, one of the channels that does the best coverage of Joe Biden is actually Sky News Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I subscribe to that channel, and you see great reports every day
Mm-hmm. About.
of liberals, woke people in the US, how bad it is, how terrible, and Biden especially. They've been doing this for a couple of years that I've been watching them. So they're not surprised that all of a sudden, you know, he had a bad night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Kareem Jacques-Pierre says, oh, he just had a bad night. He had a cold. He was tired. He traveled all over the world, you know, like 10 excuses of
Right.
why he wasn't at his best
Mm-hmm.
during the debate. And
Right.
I'm thinking to myself, okay, he flew to France and back. He flew to Italy and back. That's not flying around the world and all of that. And oh, by the way, not one of those people making excuses has pointed out Air Force One, the president has his own bedroom. So he has a complete bedroom on Air Force One. So he can sleep all day if he wants and all night and whatever. He's not sitting in economy like we would be all bunched up for, you
Right.
know, the flight to France. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, 7 hours maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I think Frankfurt, Germany, maybe 7 or 8 hours.
These are all
That's
excuses.
this isn't flying to China, where you fly to the West Coast and then you fly 15 hours overseas to Beijing or somewhere like that, and the whole trip might take 30 hours in
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 different airports, and then
Right.
the seating,
Right.
unless you're going to pay thousands of dollars, it's still going to be expensive. You're going to be an economy all crunched up. You won't be able to get any rest. But the
Mm-hmm.
president has a bedroom.
Right.
And that are like full-time, waiters and waitresses on the plane.
Right.
They work for the Air Force. So,
Well, the situation right
so
now,
there's no excuse. He had a head cold. He had to get over. He had jet lag. He had this. He was back in. How many days was he at Camp David?
it's
Six,
already
7, 8.
7 days already.
He
7.
could have been in China and back, and he should have been recovered from any jet lag he could have possibly had.
Mm-hmm. Well, so
So,
actually, sadly, we are at 1984 already, which is the book, right?
yeah,
There
oh
are
yeah.
no media to tell the truth. If people don't know the truth, how can they react accordingly? They were cheated for time, for a long period of times already. So sadly, some people just don't realize that. And then look about the immigration, the illegal immigrants. Right now, we just got information from an immigration lawyer that is that the illegal immigrants are be able to get a work permit and social security card in as little as 1 to 2 months. This is not right. This is illegal. They can get work permit. That's fine, but they cannot get the social security card. They're not citizen. They're not here legally. How could that happen? But it happens. And I saw a news talk about the Hungarian Prime Minister Orban. He said that what happened in Europe, there are so many illegal immigrants from Muslim society move into, or Muslim countries move into the Europe and the American. The one who behind the whole thing is Soros and his
Yeah,
organization.
did you know, by the way, that the United States CIA tried to interfere and overthrow the election of Viktor Orban in Hungary the last time around? He is one of the most popular leaders
Mhm.
in the history of Hungary, anywhere in Europe. And he's been getting, 80, 90% of the vote three,
Mhm.
4 times in a row. And
Mhm.
part of that was he stood up to the EU. Now,
Right.
back when Germany was letting in how many million, and
Mhm.
Sweden let in how many million, really hurt the infrastructure of their countries,
Right.
Orban, the EU said to every member, you will accept refugees. They mostly were coming from Syria and
Mhm.
other Middle Eastern countries. You will take them in. Orban said, no, I
I don't.
won't.
Mhm.
I refuse.
Right.
And all they have, it's a landlocked country. So all they have is a big fence around Hungary. He has a fence installed. He said, we're not taking refugees, illegals, or anything. And he says flat out why. We are a Christian Jewish country, and Jewish for sure. They had thousands, tens of thousands of Hungarians killed in the Holocaust by Hitler. But we are a Judeo Christian country, and we are going to stay that way. We
Mhm.
don't want anybody coming in here. All these Muslims come in, and the first thing you want to do is throw your religion out and put their doctrine in, Sharia law, and all these other things. He said, we're not going to have it. And you can't make us. And they can't. So,
Right.
and they did it, but they hate them. They
Mhm.
hate them. Our administration, Joe Biden and the U.S. presidency, they don't like Orban. That's why they had the CIA try to overthrow his last election, and it didn't work.
Mhm.
But you hear Orban, he did an interview with Tucker Carlson maybe a year ago now, at
Mhm.
least 6 months ago, and in that interview, Tucker basically said, "Well, what would you recommend?" And his statement was, "If we're going to fix the EU,
Mhm.
and if you're going to fix the United States, you need to bring back President Trump."
Yeah.
Avidly. No, he didn't mince words. You need Trump back in the White House.
Mhm.
And you can imagine what the Biden administration thought of that. And you
Right.
can imagine what the EU administration there thought of that.
Mhm.
That's why, he's basically in Europe persona non grata
Mhm.
because of the fact that he has been so outspoken
Mhm.
in Hungary coming first.
Mhm.
That Hungary, his job is to protect
First.
Hungary, and it will be always protect Hungary first.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then Trump, and he praises Trump, and Trump's protect America first. He said he endorses that 100%. If
Right.
every leader protected his own country, we wouldn't have all of this this mess of immigration and refugees and all the rest of it that we have. And Orban says, and we're not going to have it here, period.
Right, right. So this is more clear and clear that we are, as a people, stand up together against the globalism. They don't care about the law and order in each country. They don't even care about the country. They want the whole world.
From a historical perspective, you know what? When the Russians had the revolution in 1917, the Communist Party coming in called themselves internationalists.
Right.
But the only thing we have now with the Marxists is they changed the name from internationalists to globalists.
Right.
They're still Marxists. The philosophy is still the same. The state comes first. You and your family come first. Your children belong to the state. So if we want to mutilate them and change their genders, we're going to do that. And you parents have no rights to stop that. So, that's the difference, is that nothing's new in 100 years.
Right.
Still communism. It
Tom,
goes back to Karl Marx.
Right. Tom, you know what? When you talk about internationalism, and I just remember when we were very, very young, we were teach a song called "Song of Internationalism." It's called "international 就一定要实现." The meaning is the internationalism will become the reality one day. So we were trained, we were taught about the sun when we are just little kids. So this is internationalism. This is the Marxism, for sure.
Marxism.
Yeah.
Marxism with a different name. That's all.
Yeah, different name. So thank you so much to point out that the Marxism equals the internationalism equals to globalism. Different name, the same core.
Yeah, and the system is that the elite that run the system run your country, run your family, run everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference. And, what's interesting is that in the 1940s, George Orwell, the British author, was a socialist.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote two of the greatest books pointing out what's wrong with socialism / communism. His first, Animal Farm, is tremendous. It's a bunch of animals, and he has them be like people, and the pigs are in charge. And the one pig is telling the other pig, all pigs are equal, but some pigs are more equal.
Right.
And he was pointing out the Politburo, in Moscow, that they're all supposed to be equal, but some of the party members are more equal than everybody else. And then his really unbelievable book is 1984,
right,
where he talks about Big Brother is taking over, and that's what we see now. Right. We see that, and and at the national level, we see that for the Democratic Party, that they're exactly following the script of Big Brother and censor individuals. The state rules. You have no rights as an individual. And then they use terminology that's the opposite of what it really means.
Right.
And it fooled the people. And that's really what we're seeing now, is the implementation of the teachings of 1984.
Right.
George Orwell, I think, wrote that in 1949.
That's true. That's true. And we have some audience or just say thank you so much for Tom to share your thoughts, and greeting to you too. And then Patriot, he said I think mentioned you, Tom, should talk in a big broadcast. I agree with that. Let Americans know the truth, especially those Democrats members. Okay, also he said Yui, he said Orban is such a person who dared to take responsibility, save the world. Tribute to Orban. She's really respect Orban. He's truthful, and he just have the encouragement to stand out to say no to the globalism and UN.
Another way that he did and his party did In 1999, I was running the FBI's organized crime program. And Hungary, the government at that time, the Orbáns and Sander Pinter, the Minister of the Interior, approached the FBI's legal attaché that dealt with their country. He was actually located in Vienna, Austria, but one of the countries he covered was Hungary. And they approached our legal attaché and said, we want to form a task force, and we want to do something about organized crime in our country, and the organized crime directorate of the Hungarian National Police. And so the legal attaché said, okay, I was running organized crime, invite me over, go to Hungary and meet with them and talk about trying to do something together. Well, it turned out that the person running the organized crime directorate for the Hungarian National Police was crooked. And he was on the payroll of the leading organized crime group in Eastern Europe and in Russia. The guy running that group was called Simon Mogilevich. So anyway, I go over there. The guy running the organized crime program for the Hungarian National Police had 300 officers under his command. His name was Laszlo Todhauser. So I meet with the Minister of Interior and I say, we cannot form a task force or work together in your country because you have a crook running your organized crime directorate. So you eliminate that. And we've gotten this from intelligence agencies all over Europe of how powerful he is and the Mogilevich organization is and all of that. So I basically said, you get rid of him and let's talk. But until then, we cannot do business. So I thought, all right, that's the last I'm going to hear of that. About 2 or 3 weeks go by, and Miles Burden, the attaché in Vienna, calls me up, says, Tom, you got to come right away. They fired Tannhauser and the 300 policemen that worked for him. They're gone. They looted the office. They took the files. All you have in their office space now are scraps of paper on the floor. And the Minister of Interior and the head of the police are saying, Tom promised he needs to come back and meet with us. Wow. So now he called me on Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend, 1999. So I missed Thanksgiving. I fly to Hungary the next day and I'm there all week. So I miss, Thanksgiving at home and all of that, which that's fine. So I go over there and explain to him, okay, here, let's create this task force. So he pulls out a legal pad. We're in the Minister of the Interior's office, Sander Pinter. And Mr. Pinter, in perfect English, says, we fought, the Mongols. We fought the Tsars. We fought the communists. We fought Hitler. Then we fought the communists again. And this is him saying, we will be goddamned if organized crime is going to take over our country now. Together, we're going to stop it. The FBI and the Hungarian National Police. I said, all right. So he pulled out, he had a yellow legal pad, and we hand wrote a memorandum of understanding creating an organized crime task force, members of the FBI, members of the Hungarian National Police, and the office space that we would have, the rules that would be under. And the way it was set up is the Hungarian police officers, there would be 7 officers from Hungary, plus translators. It's a very difficult language, Hungarian. I can speak Spanish, but not, Hungarian was very difficult. And then we had 5 FBI agents assigned to it that would go there and would be assigned in Hungary for a length, 6 months to a year or whatever. Now we had to change laws and rules with the State Department to be able to have an extended task force, which we did later. But in any event, the task force, we selected our officers, they selected theirs. We conducted training for their officers in the United States, and our officers went there, our agents went there, received training there. The actual first day of operation was April 1st, 2000. That's when the task force began operating. And it's there to this day. And among the things that the Hungarians asked for, this is very dangerous. Your agents are going to be here. The Mogilevich organization will probably try to kill them. It'll be very dangerous. We want your agents to come here and carry guns like our officers do, be fully armed. We're going to deputize your agents to be Hungarian police officers. We're going to ask you to deputize Hungarian police officers to be deputy marshals of the United States government. So we would have jurisdiction in both countries, and we would write our paperwork, duplicate it so that it would be in Hungarian and it would be in English and it would be in our files and in their files. And we went to work that way. So April 1st, 2000, that task force began operating. It's operating today under the same rules. It's the only task force outside the United States where FBI agents working side by side with foreign police officers, they're all armed and they all have equal jurisdiction. Now, the agents that work in the legal attaché offices, the 80 offices around the world, have permission to be armed. And when I went to those countries, I had permission, when I was there. Now, I couldn't fly with a gun, so they already pre-positioned them there. So that when I got off the plane in their country, I was issued a gun to wear while I was in that country. But in any event, that task force, the Mogilevich organization that was just beginning to take over Hungary, fled when the task force was formed to Moscow. They left the country even. And to this day, the Hungarians are very, very grateful that we've had this partnership. And in fact, a number of European countries criticized Hungary. Again, the Orban group, the chief of police, and the head of the government, and the Sander Pinter, the Minister of Interior, and they just fought back. And in the international press said, we asked you for help, EU. We asked you to give us police officers to come in here, help us eliminate the Russian organized crime organizations trying to take over our country. You refused. When we asked the FBI, they came. So don't tell us that we can't have the FBI here. They answered our request. And we're still there. So Hungary, going back, 24 years, Hungary does not take orders from the EU, and they don't want to hear any of their nonsense and hypocrisy from the EU.
Wow, what a story. Such a wonderful story. And thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing the story. I will definitely translate the story into Chinese into our Chinese audience within hours. I'll do that. It's such a wonderful story.
Okay, if you the questions that you may get about that, please bring up next week, and I'll answer all the new questions that pertain to this task force. But it's a very, very significant task force because we have agents, all kinds of countries, not just the ones that we have relationships with, Somalia, countries like that, where agents have been working. And I opened the FBI offices in Kabul, in Baghdad, in Beijing in 2002. So I'm familiar with, the different countries and what we can do and what we can't do. But the Hungarian task force is the best in the world because of their support. Because they said, come here, we'll deputize you as Hungarian national police officers. We want you to be armed in our country, and we want you on the street with our officers side by side. Absolutely. Fantastic.
So back on that old days, FBI has such a great reputation all over the world.
Yeah, the great reputation and well-deserved.
Right.
And that's why me and a number of my colleagues, when we hit mandatory retirement, I was 57 years old is mandatory for an FBI agent. I hit that in 2008. Several of my colleagues that we all came up the chain in different parts of the country, getting promoted at the same time to higher ranks. So several really good friends of mine, at the time I was an assistant director, they were assistant directors. They were moved up as well. And for all of us, I think I left in 2008. I think that the youngest of us maybe left around 2010, let's say, or 2011 in that time frame. So by 2015, when we see what James Comey did to the FBI with McCabe, with Strzok, with all these other ne'er-do-wells, and when that gets, Christopher Wray comes in, he's already hearing the criticism of the FBI. Oh, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to take over. This is not going to happen. And he made it worse. And
Mhm.
so I watch him give testimony to Congress, and he's might as well be a Democrat because he lies proficiently.
Mhm.
And things that they're doing, and the double standard now is unbelievable. And the FBI, what's interesting is traveling around the world, most people outside the United States don't hear all the stuff where the FBI is going after people protesting at an abortion clinic, or what they did at Mar-a-Lago, or some of the other
Mhm.
activities that the FBI is engaged in, where there's definitely a two-tier system of justice. Um, you know, Arresting 1,400 people or something in connection with January 6th. All of the things now that they say are important, um, and Christopher Wray echoing Biden that white supremacy is the biggest problem facing the FBI, MAGA basically, they declared war on MAGA along with Biden and the administration, and that was intolerable, would not have been tolerated in the old days, and it wasn't.
Right. Well, thank you, Tom. That all I can say is thank you for your service again and for your stand up for the reputation and integrity of FBI, which they should have today. I will do the translation, the Chinese version, as soon as possible, and then I would love to share your story, cooperating with Hungarian National Police to my audience. And this is wonderful, and this is the way that FBI should be. And I'm glad you guys still here and still stand up and do something to protect the reputation. And this is the way to serve the country. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So,
You don't have to be in too big of a hurry tonight to do. Right now it's 8 p.m., 8:15 p.m. in Iceland where I'm at. So don't worry about the you know tonight having to hurry up and do the translation. I appreciate that you let us do this at a later time, so that I could do it this week, and I appreciate that.
thank you. Thank you so much and have the good rest of your trip. And welcome
Okay.
back.
Yeah, and then let me know next week if we're going to do Wednesday instead of Tuesday, or that'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll keep contact with you and then keep you updated. Thank you.
Okay.
And you,
Thank you.
you. I'll see you next week.
Okay.